It's another beautiful day in Dorset. A perfect day for a walk. So this morning I've come to Lulworth Cove, but I've actually parked in the village. There is a cove car park, but it's quite expensive, so I prefer to park in the village if I can. And the first part of the walk was a bit of road walking, which I think I've said before in my videos, I like to get that out of the way first, then I can enjoy the rest of the day. So that's done. I'm off road now, and I am heading west, and I'm following what I call the inland coast path. It's the path which runs along the ridge just inland of the main coast path. So I'm going to head west. I don't know how far I'm going to get. Potentially I could get to Ringstead Bay. I'm not quite sure whether I will or not, but that will be all on the inland coast path. And then wherever I get to, my way back will be along the coast path proper. And the coast path proper is across, you can see the coast path over there. Beyond that obviously is Portland. That will be with us all day, Portland of course. So yes, the way back will be along the coast path. I probably should do it the other way in some ways, because obviously the coast path is the hard part. That's the up and down bit and some really steep climbs. In some ways you could argue do those first, because the inland coast path, my way out, is comparatively flat. But I just prefer to do it the other way. And the reason for that probably is because, as always, I like to try and get some sunset at the end of the day, and where better to get the sunset than from the coast path. So the way back, whatever happens, we will take in White Nothe, we will take in Bat's Head, we will take in the famous Durdle Door arch on our route back. And obviously anywhere along there to get the sunset will be amazing. And it's a lovely clear blue sky day, so there should be a sunset. So I'm really looking forward to this one again, and should be a really good walk on a lovely Dorset day in January, and I hope you're going to come along with me. So this is where we've come from, up this track here. The hills you can see in the distance that's all part of the Lulworth MOD firing range. It doesn't sound as if they're firing today. I can't hear anything, because quite often you walk here, you'll hear the thumping of guns, but none today. But the range walks are closed. They open at weekends and summer holidays, that sort of thing. But that's where we come from. Lovely view. And we're heading straight up there. And there's lots of interesting things on this walk. Loads of stuff to show you and to talk about. This is probably the first of them. One of those quaint Dorset names, because that valley is actually known as Scratchy Bottom. I always think that's quite humorous. We've got quite a few places like that in Dorset with funny names. Probably everywhere has. But yeah, Scratchy Bottom. Nothing to do with scratching your bottom, of course. It's to do with the vegetation that used to be in the bottom of the valley. It was kind of scrubland, I guess, gorse and general kind of rough shrubbery, that sort of thing. Hence, that's where it got its name from. I always think that's interesting. Amusing as well. Good start to a walk, isn't it? Well, if it was full of stuff like this, it would have been pretty scratchy, wouldn't it? So there's a funny story I can tell you here, and it concerns this trough. See, there's a cattle trough there, which is to feed water, sheep and cattle when they're up here. I was walking along here one day on an absolutely freezing cold day, and that trough was completely frozen over. It was solid ice, and on top of that ice there was a sheep, and somehow he had got up onto the ice. I've no idea how. There's often sheep along this part of the coast. There isn't today, I can't see any. So this sheep was on top of the ice, and he was slip sliding all over the place, and he couldn't jump off. He couldn't jump off because his feet just slid out from under him whenever he tried. So I was concerned about him. And so I went across towards him. I was going to try and lift him down because he obviously was a bit distressed. But the trouble was, whenever I went near him, he panicked. And I was so concerned that he was going to do more harm, or I was going to do more harm by trying to help him, that I had no choice. I had to just leave him there and carry on my way, because I was worried about doing more harm than good. But always sticks in my mind, and I had no idea what happened. I assume the farm workers must drive up over these headlands and hills, and that they would have spotted him. I assume that's the case, because I don't think he was there later when I came back along the coast. Yeah, funny story. That's another glorious Dorset view down there, back towards Lulworth Cove. There's a couple of interesting things along this bit of coast. The first one is up there. You can see an obelisk. Can't get to it because it's there's no footpath past it, but that intrigued me for many years, all my walking life, until a few years ago when I discovered what it was about. But I'll tell you about that later. The other thing is these, bearing in mind that we are in the middle of nowhere on a hilltop. There are actually 3 of these sculptures. There's 2 more further on, and it's intrigued me that these were here in the middle of nowhere, but apparently it was a project. It was 1985 I believe. The Weld Estates, who own this land around here, requested these be carved and installed as part of a project which was the Common Ground New Milestones project. Interesting, I thought. That's the second one. And theoretically the third one, but sadly that one went missing quite a long time ago. I don't know what happened to that. Oh, I just remembered there's a third thing which is relatively interesting. Well, interesting because it's in the middle of nowhere again. It is a memorial stone to Llewellyn Powys. He was a writer. In fact, the Powys family were a local family. Some of them lived in Chowden Herring, which is up over the top of the hill and down the other side. 11 in the family, and many of them were writers actually. In fact, I think it was one of the Powys family that wrote Mr. Weston's Good Wine, I believe, which is a book, local book, well-known book, which I've read. And there are sheep up here, just in a different field. So that valley down there actually goes down to Chowden Herring. This is, again, I've said this before, I know, but it's such a lovely place to walk because you've got views over the coast, obviously, to the left, with Portland across the water there. But you've got views all along inland to the right as well. And it's a lovely path. You can see where the hedge line goes there. So right in front of us is White Nothe, the headland, but we're going to skirt round behind that for now. Later on will be the other side, coming over the top on the coast path. So I'm almost past White Nothe now. I'm coming down the other side. And this is another great view. Don't know if it'll come out very well in the distance with this camera, but Portland is farthest to the left, and then you can see the whole of Weymouth over there, and further round Ringstead Bay, which is probably where I'm going to drop down, I expect. I should say, by the way, that White Nothe, as we'll see later, gets its name from its shape. It's also known as White Nose, because of its shape and because it's chalk. But yeah, White Nothe is what it's known as. I don't know if it was named on a day when somebody had a cold, so they couldn't say nose, they said Nothe, I think. Sorry. I think it's probably an old English word, but I love White Nothe. It's fascinating. It's got some interesting stuff on it, which we'll see later. Well, that was interesting because I just heard a couple of skylarks just now, and this very minute I've seen a butterfly. I don't know if you can see it, it's just to the left of my shadow. It's like a peacock. Oh, he's flown. It's a spring-like day. Oh, we got some spring-like wildlife. Awesome. So there down there is Ringstead in all its glory, with cottages. It's a small hamlet, I suppose. You you can see obviously the beach, Weymouth and Portland. So Ringstead would have originally, I think, been a fishing village, as a lot of these coastal villages were. It's now pretty much all holiday lets, I believe. But there's a nice shingle beach and obviously some good walks around here too. Oh, the other thing there is, which I probably won't make use of today because I've got a flask, is the tea rooms. Wow, no, tea rooms is stretching it. A tea kiosk with some outside tables, and I kind of make use of that at times when I come down this way, but I'm not going to today because I'm catered for. It's interesting. So they've cleared the shrubbery to open up the view, but not sure about the seat actually. Interesting. So I'm still on the inland coast path, by the way, or what I call the inland coast path, skirting along the top of the ridge. But in a minute I'm going to go off to the left and head down to the coast path proper. There's a nice little place down there through the woods. I'll have views down over Ringstead. So I've actually dropped off of the inland coast path now and I'm heading downwards towards Ringstead Bay, where I'm going to join the main coast path and the beach. Down this track, this is just, I think it's a farm track actually, because I think it's a farmhouse down there. Oh, and I think my artist lives there as well, I believe, from my previous visits down here. But it's mainly a farm, so that's their drive, if you like. It's a steep drive, I have to say. It's a good job they've got these grooves cut into it. You'd have trouble getting out of here on an icy morning. So I was up the top there just now, the inland coast path, heading down. So we're almost down onto the beach now, but this is another, well, it's a wartime relic. There's a few of these old buildings around here and relics. This was, obviously, as the sign says, it was a radar station. In fact, along here there was, we can see the picture at the bottom that shows there's a bank of aerials, and there was a satellite, I believe there was a large satellite dish as well. There's no nothing remaining of that, but that bunker back there is still there, and I believe there's at least 2 or 3 others bunkers like that. Some of them are on the public path, some are on private land, so you can't necessarily access them. But the other thing there is actually a fort as well at Ringstead. That's, I don't think that's technically on a footpath, and I won't be going past it today anyway, so we won't see it. But this is now the coast path, so if I were to turn left, that would take me straight up the main coast path to the top of White Nothe. But I'm actually going to go right and head down towards Ringstead Beach, because there is an alternative path that you can take to the top of White Nothe, and I'm going to go that way, and that's an interesting path. Well, it's not the easiest way down to the beach. There is an easier way actually further down, but I thought I'd try and cut across here. Ringstead Beach down there, and over there you got the first proper view of White Nothe, and you can see why it's called White Nothe, the shape of it and the chalk outcrops. So we'll be climbing up there in a minute, if I can get down here without going flying on my backside. Well, that was pretty treacherous coming down there, so muddy and slippery, but I'm down almost onto the beach. I absolutely love walking along the beach like this and watching this surf come in. I do have to keep dodging it, mind you. And I did get wet just now when one came in quicker than I could get out of the way. But it's just, and I've done this with my camera, taking still photographs and tried to capture the surf and the way it rolls up the beach, and it never seems to work. So I'm hoping with this movie camera that it will work. And the way the waves break, it's like a ballet dance of nature, watching the way they curl over and froth and bubble white. I think it's amazing, and it's so beautiful. And of course we've got the sound of waves and surf. Just lovely. And it's a nice beach, shingle, but fine shingle, which makes it quite pleasant to walk on, although it is hard on the ankles, I have to say. We're nearly at the end of the beach now, coming out onto the rocks. You can see what a long beach this is, right the way round to the hamlet or village of Ringstead. We're still heading east. We'll start doing a bit of rock clambering for a time. Always interesting what you find washed up on the beach. There's always some kind of debris. Lots more rocks to go over yet. Ankle breaking rocks if you're not careful. And of course, this is another really good reason to carry a walking pole. There was a time when I was younger when I could rock hop easily, but not anymore. When you reach a certain age, your balance starts to go a little bit, and you can't quite trust it as you used to. So having a third leg can save a lot of injuries. and embarrassments, of course. That's where we've come from. And this is what we've come for. This is the start of the Smugglers Path that climbs to the top of White Nothe, and it's a path which is interesting and arduous, and it's got a history. It was probably made famous by J. Mead Faulkner, who wrote Moonfleet, novel on smuggling in Dorset, which I read as a schoolboy and I've read several times since. And he has a passage in there that describes this Smuggler's Path, which I will read later. I'll do it as a voiceover, I won't read it here where I am, but we're heading up there. We follow the path, and that's where we've come from. Unusual and quirky, I think. A bit like Dorset in some ways. I should say, anybody's thinking of attempting this, it's quite a hard path. It's very undulating, it's quite rough and probably non-obvious, not intuitive really. Quite often you find yourself going down and you think you should be going up. It's a bit more obvious towards the end, but if you want to try it, it's well worth it because it is fascinating and mysterious. And up there is White Nothe, of course, so that's where we're heading, and it's going to get steeper. "Forgive me, lad," he said, "if I have spoken too roughly. There is yet another way that we may try, and if thou hadst but 2 whole legs, I would have tried it. But now 'tis little short of madness. And yet, if thou fearst not, I will still try it. Just at the end of this flat ledge,
Farthest from where the bridle path leads down, but not 100 yards from where we stand, there is a sheep track leading up the cliff. It starts where the undercliff dives back again into the chalk face and climbs by slants and elbow turns up to the top. The shepherds call it a zigzag, and even sheep lose their footing on it. And of men, I never heard but one that had climbed it, and that was Lander Jordan, when the excise was on his heels half a century back. But he that tries it stakes all on head and foot, and a wounded bird like thee may not dare that flight. Yet if thou art content to hang thy life upon a air, I will carry thee some way, and where there is no room to carry, thou must down on hands and knees and trail thy foot.
On top of White Nothe, there's a few interesting things. First is this, another relic of war. This is well, it's a pillbox, but it was a communications area, communications building. Up over the top, I think, is where they would sit, and obviously lookout and communications. And there's some other buildings here which are ruined. Not much to see inside. You can get the view they had. Right, 3 sides. So that's Ringstead down the bottom. The other interesting thing, and this is something which fascinated me for many years, and eventually I found out what these cottages are. These are old smugglers, Coast Guard cottages, and there are 6 of them. The largest one, the 3-storey one to the left, is the captain's house. That's where the captain lived, and there were the other 5 is where the crew lived. And at one point, with families, obviously kids, there were 44 people living in these cottages up here on top of White Nothe, and they are totally remote, totally off-grid. There's no road access. It's a 4x4 across tracks to get here. There is no mains anything. There's no mains electricity, no mains gas, no mains water, no mains drainage. So lighting is by generator powered by LPG, or was. I say was, it may have changed since then. Gas is obviously from LPG. Heating is log burners in most of them, I believe. Some of them have kind of back boilers that would feed a couple of radiators from the fire. Water is basically rainwater, which runs off the roof and down into underground tanks, which then needs to be pumped up to the header tank at the top. Not sure you'd want to drink that. And drainage is by septic tank. So you don't get much more remote than this. The reason I know this is because I got to know the lady who lived in the captain's house at the end, and I used to chat to her quite often as I walked along this route. She's now moved out, in fact, and the people who bought it actually did some renovations, and they've also added solar panels. So I don't know whether, I guess the electricity situation must be better, certainly in the end house. In fact, I think the same people own both of the end houses, because the second house in from the left was owned by a very old man who lived here on his own, and he had a fire, I think, and died. Left it to the National Trust, but the National Trust sold it, and I think the same people bought that as bought the captain's house. And the end building, the single-storey building at the end, is apparently the old gun room where the Coast Guards used to keep their guns, but it also doubled as their kind of bar, where they used to kind of have their social gatherings in the evenings. I guess the men would probably go in there and sup ale, I presume. So that's White Nothe cottages, 6 of them. Imagine 44 people living in there. 5 of them are small. Obviously the captain house is the bigger, but look at the amazing view they have down over Ringstead, across to Portland over there, across the headland, and then the coast path heading east, which is where we'll be going later. But for now it's time for a late lunch, I think, so I'm going to go and see if my seat is empty. But they fascinated me for so many years, these cottages. I could never really understand what they were about because I never saw anybody until, as I say, one day my friend happened to be sat in her garden, got talking, And yeah, we had a few conversations after that when I was walking this path, and they've always fascinated me, and they still do, just living off grid like that. So that's the view. That's down over Ringstead Bay. I was down on that beach just now, of course. You can see how remote these are. The track over in the cross, virtually in the middle of the picture now, is the track they have to drive out on. But for now, I'm going to head back out to where I was just now, at the top of the Smugglers Path, because there's a seat there. I can probably enjoy my lunch and take in a view. Yeah, fascinating place. It's very open to the elements. Obviously on its headland by the sea, so maintenance is probably quite difficult, and they are so remote. No deliveries up here, of course, so if you want your liquid petroleum gas, you run out and you just have to drive off in your 4x4 and buy some, carry it back. And I presume drinking water, I'm not sure, bottled as far as I know, because I don't think you'd want to drink rainwater that's been sat in the underground water tank reservoir. And yes, you have to pump it up to the header tank. I guess it's alright for showers and things like that, but it's the kind of off-grid living that I would actually enjoy, to be truthful. Because I think this would be a great place to live. There we are, back at the top of the Smugglers track again. And this now is the view east from where I am. You can see where we'll be heading back in a minute. But also, the good news is I can see my seat is vacant. So that's not a bad seat, is it? For lunch, pretty good. And that's the view across White Nothe. The next headland is at Bat's Head, and you get Swyre Head. Beyond that, Durdle Door, which you can't see, we can just see the top. And then beyond that, Dungy Head. Way in the distance, if it comes out on the video, is St Oldham's Head, where we were in my previous video, or one of my previous videos. Anyway, lunchtime. So it's another Dorset Rambler lunch, and by that I mean mid-afternoon, because I never have lunch at lunchtime. Just have it when I want to, really. I have to say, when I'm walking, food doesn't bother me that much. I enjoy the walking too much. I don't even notice when I'm hungry. But that was my lunchtime view. That was truly amazing on a day like this. What better view is there? lunchtime is over. Time to get back on the trail again. But the good news is, for me, is that I'm going to have company for the second part. Well, actually it's not the second part, as I'm about 7.5 miles in. But my son Paul is coming to meet me, and we're going to be walking back together, so I get company. So that's good. And we're heading back towards White Nothe cottages again. So we leave White Nothe behind and head east. Well, it's a spectacular evening, an amazing view. I pan round, you might be able to pick out over the other side of this valley an obelisk rather similar to the one we passed earlier. So I'm going to tell you all about that in a minute. So as we approach the obelisk, here's the story. There are two of them. As you would have realised, we passed one earlier which was inland, and this one on the coast path. And they always intrigued me because they're clearly not memorial type obelisks. They're far too functional and basic, and I wondered about it for years and I could never actually find any details. And then one day a few years ago I thought, I'm going to find out what they're about. So I spent the day making phone calls, and I started off with one. Any idea about these obelisks? You know what they're about? I just wondered. Well, what you need to do is ring so-and-so at so-and-so. So I would ring so-and-so at so-and-so, and I'd get told the same thing. Well, you need to contact. And so I went on all day ringing from one to the other, trying to find out about these obelisks. And finally I got hold of the hydrographic office at Taunton, and they came up with the answer. They found there is a manual, a kind of coastal manual of Britain called the Channel Pilot, Part 1, 1908, and the obelisks are actually mentioned. And what it says is there was an instruction, military instruction, and it says 2 white beacons 24 feet high for the use of His Majesty's ships when prize firing. So that was a naval instruction giving instructions that they should be built 24 feet high, white. Now the astute will notice they're no longer white because it's worn off, but they were used for prize firing by the Navy. Prize firing, I've discovered what that is. Prize firing is for the gunners to practice, or it's like an exam I suppose, to see whether they're any good, see how accurate they are. And it's an annual event, and if they hit the target often enough then they can go off to war, and if they don't hit the target often enough then it's obviously more training. So it's a kind of competition, firing competition, to assess whether they're ready for war or not. Now I don't know exactly how they were used. I haven't been able to find that out, but they obviously have to be lined up because one's inland and one's on the coast. So they're like mile markers, so obviously you have to line them up at sea. And I wondered if, I mean, back in the day, presumably the ship would try to be stationary while the gunners, because the gunners will fire, if they don't hit the target they need to adjust the guns to fire again. But how can they do that if the ship is constantly moving? So I wonder if it is to aid the captain, who has to try and maintain a steady ship and keep it in one place so the gunners can fire accurately. That's the theory, the Dorset Rambler's theory as to how those obelisks worked and what they were used for. I don't know whether that's exactly right, We know it's for prize firing, and we know what prize firing was. And this is 1908, so there would have been old style ships. Anyway, I thought that was really interesting. Hope you found it so too. Oh, we're losing the light gradually. But, further down there, the first headland you see, which is in there, that's Bat's Head, and a bit like White Nothe is called White Nothe because of its shape and its colour. Bat's Head is also called Bat's Head because it's shaped like a bat, or like a bat's head, I guess. So that's Bat's Head, and it's got an eye as well, which is a cave right at sea level that goes right through. So we've got to head down to the bottom and climb up onto Bat's Head before we go down and then back onto the top of Swyre Head, the next headland, and then down to the bottom and back up to the top, on the top of Hambury Tout. So we've got a few headlands to go. And the sun is beginning to set, so the light could be tricky. We're now at the low point, with the sun just above the horizon, and White Nothe now visible from the other side. So you can see why it's White Nothe, shaped like a nose, Roman nose I reckon. But we've now got to go upwards. So the sun is almost gone. I'm almost at the top of Bat's Head now, but the light is going. So now on the top of Bat's Head, heading out to the edge. So we'll go right to the very end, because from this point you can see both west and east. So looking west, I love this view. Always like the view from here with Bat's Head snaking out. And of course the sunset, wonderful. That's the end, can't go any further south, and that's the way east, which is where we're going. So now you can see Durdle Door over in the distance, the arch. Gonna lose the light by the time I get there possibly, but Durdle Door arch is in there. The foreground one is that Swyre Head, that's a hump that is, got to get over that and down the other side before we get close to Durdle Door. Beyond Durdle Door, up in there, that's Hambury Tout, and then in the distance right over there is Dungy Head, and then even further in the distance over there is St Albans Head. So we've got to walk over certainly the first three headlands here. And we've actually got a bit of pink in the sky. That's reflected from the sunset behind me. But our route actually goes down here. I always think when you get down to the bottom, or the lowest point, which is that much above the beach, not quite sea level, I always think that Swyre Head looks a right beast. from down here. It's the highest of the headlands, I think, around here, and it's a steep climb up there at the end of the day. But there is no way other than up when you're down here. The sky's lighting up nicely over there, other side of Bat's Head, halfway up Swyre Head. Look at the colour of that sky, absolutely amazing, beautiful. Look at that. It's even better up here. The higher you go, the more it lights up. That is absolutely beautiful. What a view, what a sky, what an end to a great day. Every time I stop for a rest and turn around, it gets better. Just look at it. Fantastic. And for once I'm ahead of Paul. He's catching me up. That's only because he's been taking photos though. Not because I'm quicker. So the light is fading now, so I'm going to run out of time to film much more, even though there's still another couple of miles to go. But you can see from here, incidentally, is the bat's eye. I think it'll come out on the video hopefully, but down at the bottom here, bottom of the headland, you can see the eye and you can go right through that, and that sky is just great. So I think this is a good time for me to sign off. I might be able to squeeze a little bit more filming in, but the light's fading. So it's been an absolutely awesome day. I've really enjoyed it, and it's been great to have Paul's company at the end of the day as well. That's a real pleasure. So thanks for coming with me. I hope you've enjoyed it. And for now, this is me, the Dorset Rambler, saying until next time.